Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Imagine two countries that are very smart and have the best technology. These countries are Japan and Germany. They are known for making advanced things like cars, robots, and important research. Because of their knowledge and industries, they could make nuclear weapons very fast, perhaps in just a few months or a year. This means they have the key to join the small club of countries with these powerful bombs. At the same time, Japan and Germany face serious dangers from their neighbors. Japan lives close to countries like North Korea, which often launches missiles, and China, which is becoming very powerful and has nuclear weapons. Germany is in Europe, where Russia, a country with many nuclear weapons, can be a threat to Germany and its allies. You might think that facing such threats, these nations would want their own nuclear weapons to feel safe. But they do not. They have deliberately chosen to remain non-nuclear. They do not have nuclear weapons, they do not make them, and they do not allow them on their land. This decision creates a big puzzle. Why do two of the world's most capable countries choose not to have the most powerful weapons, especially when they could and when their neighbors have them? This book will try to answer this important question. It is a fascinating puzzle for anyone interested in how countries make big choices. Japan and Germany are rich and strong, but they have decided on a different way to be secure. Their choice is very important, not just for them, but for global stability. If Japan or Germany decided to build nuclear weapons, it could start a chain reaction. Other countries nearby might then also feel they need nuclear weapons. This could make the world much more dangerous and harder to control. Therefore, understanding why they remain non-nuclear is crucial for global peace. This first chapter introduces this interesting situation, and in the next chapters, we will look closer at the deep reasons behind their surprising decision. 2. Germany's sad history. Germany's choice to not have nuclear weapons comes from its very difficult past. After World War II ended in 1945, the world learned about the terrible things done by Nazi Germany. The Holocaust was the murder of 6 million Jewish people and millions of others. This experience deeply changed Germany. For many Germans, there was a clear link between too much military power and the great suffering that had happened. This decision creates a big puzzle. Why do two of the world's most capable countries choose not to have the most powerful weapons, especially when they could and when their neighbors have them? This book will try to answer this important question. It is a fascinating puzzle for anyone interested in how countries make big choices. Japan and Germany are rich and strong, but they have decided on a different way to be secure. Their choice is very important, not just for them, but for global stability. If Japan or Germany decided to build nuclear weapons, it could start a chain reaction. Other countries nearby might then also feel they need nuclear weapons. This could make the world much more dangerous and harder to control. Therefore, Understanding why they remain non-nuclear is crucial for global peace. This first chapter introduces this interesting situation, and in the next chapters, we will look closer at the deep reasons behind their surprising decision. 2. Germany's sad history. Germany's choice to not have nuclear weapons comes from its very difficult past. After World War II ended in 1945, the world learned about the terrible things done by Nazi Germany. The Holocaust was the murder of 6 million Jewish people and millions of others. This experience deeply changed Germany. For many Germans, there was a clear link between too much military power and the great suffering that had happened. Nuclear weapons became a symbol of this dangerous military thinking that almost destroyed their country and the whole continent. This understanding led to a strong desire to be very careful with military power. Scholars call this Germany's culture of restraint. Germany developed a very strong identity against militarism and nuclear weapons. Peace movements grew in the 1950s. These groups believed that Germany must never return to its aggressive military past. They saw nuclear weapons as the worst possible outcome of such a mindset. This public feeling was very strong and helped shape the country's future decisions. Germany made many legal promises to stay non-nuclear. In 1954, West Germany formally agreed not to make nuclear weapons. This was part of agreements known as the Paris Protocols. Later, in 1975, Germany joined the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. This international agreement works to stop the spread of nuclear weapons. Then, when Germany became one country again in 1990, the 2+4 agreement also clearly said Germany would not have nuclear weapons. These important legal agreements were not forced onto Germany. They came from a true wish inside the country to change because of its history. This allowed Germany to become a full, respected nation again, but only if it promised to never have nuclear weapons. Even today, this history strongly affects Germany's choices. Public opinion remains very much against nuclear weapons. If any German government tried to get them, there would be huge protests across the country, showing how deeply this sad history still shapes Germany. 3. Japan's painful memory. Japan carries a deep and painful memory. It is the only country in the world to suffer atomic attacks. On August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb destroyed Hiroshima. 3 days later, another bomb fell on Nagasaki. By the end of that year, around 230,000 people had died from the bombings and their aftermath. The destruction was immense. Heat reached over 3,000 degrees Celsius, and blast waves flattened buildings for miles. But the pain went deeper. Survivors, known as hibakusha, faced not only terrible injuries, but also lasting fear and sadness. Many suffered from what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. They felt guilt and discouragement. They allowed Germany to become a full, respected nation again,
but only if it promised to never have nuclear weapons. Even today, this history strongly affects Germany's choices. Public opinion remains very much against nuclear weapons. If any German government tried to get them, there would be huge protests across the country, showing how deeply this sad history still shapes Germany. 3. Japan's painful memory. Japan carries a deep and painful memory. It is the only country in the world to suffer atomic attacks. On August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb destroyed Hiroshima. 3 days later, another bomb fell on Nagasaki. By the end of that year, around 230,000 people had died from the bombings and their aftermath. The destruction was immense. Heat reached over 3,000 degrees Celsius, and blast waves flattened buildings for miles. But the pain went deeper. Survivors, known as hibakusha, faced not only terrible injuries, but also lasting fear and sadness. Many suffered from what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. They felt guilt and discouragement.
Some found it hard to marry or live normally because others feared radiation. This was a double trauma, first from the bombs, then from social judgment. This terrible experience shaped Japan's future. After the war, in 1947, Japan adopted a new peace constitution. Article 9 of this constitution says that Japan will forever give up war as a right and will not use force to settle international problems. This made pacifism a key part of Japan's national identity. From this painful memory and new constitution came Japan's 3 non-nuclear principles. These principles are: Japan will not possess nuclear weapons, it will not produce them, and it will not allow them on its land. Prime Minister Eisaku Sato officially stated these principles in 1967. He later received the Nobel Peace Prize for his strong support of nuclear disarmament. Japan's unique history gives it a special voice in the world. As the only nation to be attacked with atomic bombs, Japan holds a strong moral position for nuclear disarmament. It speaks about the horror of these weapons and asks other countries to get rid of them. However, there is also a complex part to this memory. Japan relies on the United States for its protection. The U.S. offers a nuclear umbrella, meaning it would use its own nuclear weapons to defend Japan if needed. This creates a difficult situation for a country so committed to peace and non-nuclear ideals. 4. A big country's protection. For many years, Germany and Japan have chosen not to build their own nuclear weapons. Instead, they have trusted the United States to protect them. This protection is often called the American nuclear umbrella. It means the U.S. promises to use its powerful nuclear weapons to defend its friends if they are attacked. For Germany, this protection is part of being in NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO is a group of countries that agree to defend each other. For Japan, this safety comes from the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty. This treaty clearly states that the U.S. will defend Japan. This way of ensuring safety worked well for more than 70 years. But today, both Germany and Japan are starting to feel worried.
They are not as sure if America's promise of protection will always be strong. In Germany, people are now thinking deeply about security. This is because Russia has invaded Ukraine. Russia has also made nuclear threats against countries that support Ukraine.
This has made Germany feel very nervous. There are also questions about how much America will help in the future. For instance, if Donald Trump becomes president again, he has suggested that the U.S. might not always feel bound to defend all NATO members. This has caused serious concern among German politicians. Friedrich Merz, a top German leader, said in 2025 that Europe must prepare if America's protection is not fully guaranteed. He also suggested Germany talk with France and Britain about using their nuclear weapons for European safety. Japan also faces many difficult security challenges. China is quickly making more nuclear weapons. North Korea often shoots missiles over Japan. Russia is also moving closer to China and has old arguments with Japan about land. These growing dangers make Japanese leaders very concerned about their country's safety. Like Germany, Japan has wondered before if America would always stand by its side. Past U.S. leaders, including Donald Trump, have asked allies to pay more for their own defense. This makes Japan think about how strong America's commitment will be in the future. So both Germany and Japan find themselves in a challenging situation. They depend on a big country's word, but that word now seems less certain. New threats from Russia and China are making them very anxious. They are trying to find other ways to stay safe, even as they continue not to build their own nuclear bombs. Germany is buying new F-35 fighter jets to keep working with NATO on nuclear planning. Japan is spending more money on its defense and improving its missile defenses. These actions are meant to give them security in a world that feels less safe. 5. The cost of a bomb. Germany and Japan carefully consider the financial side of having nuclear weapons. They know that making a nuclear bomb is extremely expensive. It needs a huge amount of money for research, building the weapons, and keeping them safe over many years. This large sum of money would have to be taken from other important areas, such as education or healthcare. For countries that focus on economic growth, this presents a significant challenge. More importantly, if these countries decided to build nuclear weapons, other nations would likely impose economic sanctions. This means they would stop trading and doing business with them. Both Germany and Japan have economies that rely heavily on selling goods to other countries. For example, German companies export many cars and industrial machines. Japanese companies sell advanced electronics and vehicles around the world. If such sanctions were put in place, their international trade would suffer greatly. Many people would lose their jobs, and businesses would face ruin. The economic damage would be severe and long-lasting, making the cost of a bomb far too high. Because of these reasons, Both nations choose a different path to show their strength. They use their powerful economies and their strong skills in diplomacy and international talks. This approach is often called soft power. They work hard to build good relationships and offer help to other countries. Germany, for instance, is a key leader in the European Union and actively participates in solving global issues like climate change. Japan is celebrated for its technology and rich culture, and it provides important development aid to nations around the world. This choice to remain non-nuclear also gives Germany and Japan a special voice on the world stage. As Germany does not possess these weapons, it can speak with greater credibility against countries that develop them. Japan, having been the only nation to experience atomic attacks, holds a unique moral authority when discussing peace and nuclear disarmament. They lead international efforts to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. This makes them respected partners globally. Their actions show that a nation can be influential and secure by focusing on economic strength, cooperation, and peace, rather than on the ultimate military weapon. 6. The People's Choice. Chapter 6 looks at how people's feelings stop Germany and Japan from getting nuclear weapons. For many decades, both countries have taught their citizens about peace and the dangers of war. This peace education has made most people strongly against nuclear weapons. This strong public view is a democratic constraint, meaning it makes it very hard for any government to pursue a nuclear program. Public sentiment remains a major barrier. In Germany, most people do not want nuclear weapons. A poll in 2020 showed that 83% of Germans wanted American nuclear weapons removed from their country. Even with new threats, only about 30 to 38% of Germans think their country should build its own nuclear bombs. The German peace movement, which started many years ago, still shapes public talks and influences politics. The Green Party, a main political group with significant power, also strongly opposes nuclear weapons. This shows how deep the anti-nuclear feelings are in Germany's culture, making any change very difficult for leaders. Japan also has strong public opinion against nuclear weapons. Most Japanese people support their nation's 3 non-nuclear principles. These rules say Japan will not possess, produce, or allow nuclear weapons on its land. About 60% of Japanese people want their country to join the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which bans these weapons completely. However, some people in Japan are starting to think differently because of new security dangers. When they hear about these problems, some conservative and centrist voters show more support for nuclear weapons. Still, many progressive citizens remain firm in their anti-nuclear views, not changing their minds. Because both Germany and Japan are democracies, their governments must listen to the people's wishes. It is very hard for any leader to start a nuclear weapons program when most citizens are against it. Any government trying to do so would face big public protests and might lose support. This powerful public opinion is a main reason why Germany and Japan do not have nuclear weapons.
It acts as a major barrier, making a nuclear future politically very difficult to imagine in either country. 7. Will things change? The world is always changing. For many years, Germany and Japan chose not to have nuclear weapons. But some people now wonder if this will continue. There are future situations that could make these countries change their minds. One big question is about the United States. For a long time, the U.S. has promised to protect Germany and Japan with its own nuclear weapons. This is called the nuclear umbrella. But what if the U.S. decides to stop or reduce this protection? For Germany, this worry grew after Russia invaded Ukraine. Also, if Donald Trump becomes president again, he might not support NATO as strongly. This makes many in Germany nervous about their safety. Japan faces a similar worry. If the U.S. is not willing to risk a war with China over places like Taiwan, Japan might feel left alone to face threats. Another scenario is if a neighboring country gets nuclear weapons. Imagine if South Korea, which is close to Japan, decided to build its own nuclear bomb. This could put a lot of pressure on Japan to do the same. Japan might feel it needs nuclear weapons to stay safe. In Europe, if Germany started to think about having nuclear weapons, countries like Poland might also want them, starting an arms race in the region. Because of these worries, some people in Germany and Japan are now talking about the nuclear option. These are often called hawkish voices. In Germany, a leader named Friedrich Merz has suggested that European countries should work together more on nuclear defense. This shows a big change in thinking. In Japan, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe openly spoke about Japan possibly hosting U.S. nuclear weapons. This was a very new idea for Japan and broke a long-standing rule about not discussing nuclear options. These people are still a minority, but their ideas are becoming more common. They argue that the world has become too dangerous for their countries to stay without thinking about all defense options. 8. A different way to be strong. Germany and Japan decided to be strong in a special way. They are rich and smart countries, but their strength does not come from nuclear weapons. They show the world that power can come from other things. This way challenges the old idea that nuclear bombs are the best way to be safe. Many things led them to this choice. Their history of war taught them deeply about peace. The people in both countries strongly believe in being non-nuclear. Also, making nuclear weapons would cost a lot of money and hurt their important trade with other nations. They also felt safe because the United States promised to protect them with its own nuclear power. So, Germany and Japan chose to build their influence differently. They focused on their economies. Germany, for example, makes many high-quality goods that are sold all over the world. Its industries are very important to Europe. Japan is famous for its advanced technology, like cars, robots, and electronics. These economic strengths give them much power and respect globally. They also gained respect through their moral authority. Japan, having experienced atomic bombs, speaks clearly about stopping nuclear weapons. Germany, after its past, works hard for peace and cooperation among countries. This moral standing helps them lead global talks about disarmament and solving problems without fighting. They are seen as reliable partners in the world. Their different model of strength helps keep the world safer. It proves that a nation can be successful and secure without owning dangerous nuclear weapons.
Instead of military might, their influence comes from their wealth, their smart ideas, and their strong voices for peace. They show that there is a different and perhaps better way to be a powerful country today. What do you think? Can other countries follow Germany and Japan's path to gain strength in ways that do not include nuclear weapons?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.